Hello and welcome to Mountaintop Media and We the Parents. Katie is unfortunately not with me today. She is prepping for a huge fundraiser tonight. So if you are in the Shasta County area, that is happening at the Redding Rancheria Wind River Casino for our Registrar of Voters. So if you are available, that's happening tonight. That's where she is. But I am so excited to be joined by Miss Ebie Lynch, who is running for Lieutenant Governor. And I'm so excited. I want to get her in front of every possible person, and especially our mama bears. You are going to love her. She's got an energy and a fire and a drive that I know that we can all connect with. Instantly, I was like, that lady, I want to talk to her. I don't know what she's doing, but I want to talk to her. So, Ebie, welcome. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you, Leslie. Thank
Good.
you for the wonderful introduction.
Absolutely. I don't even know that I do you justice, but we met on the steps of the Capitol, actually, for an event that we were both at. And just, I overheard part of your conversation, and you are just not only a powerhouse yourself, but you just have such a strong faith that it just like exuded off of you. And I love that. So take a minute. And I know it's the most awkward part of the conversation, but talk a little bit about yourself, who you are, and why you're choosing to run.
Thank you, Leslie. So, as you said, my name is Evie Lynch, and I decided to run. It's so funny because, in a way, I was voluntold by my papa, my heavenly father. Um, a little bit about my background. Let me just go a little bit further back. I have had a very strong relationship with God for since I was a little girl. I was originally born in Nigeria, and my father worked for Shell Oil Corporation, and he came over to the U.S. as an engineer. Because of the rules, he could not bring my mother over, and my mother was pregnant with me at the time, so she stayed in Nigeria with my older brother and myself being in her belly. Eventually, he brought her over, and I stayed behind because she had me, and she left me with my grandparents. I didn't come into to the U.S. until I was 4 years old because that's how long it took. The process took forever, and that's just the way the process went. But I'm gonna tell you, most of my friends know that I'm 100% a California girl because I've been in California since I was 4 years old, and I love California in all its richness and diversity and everything about California. I think our state is unique in that it encompasses so many different cultures, so many different peoples, um, but at the same time, we're all one. We're all Californians, and I
Absolutely.
love that. So I saw a lot of things happening in our legislature that I was appalled by. And one of the things that really got under my skin was when they started to force feed our children this narrative of a boy can be a girl and a girl can be a boy. And I said, no, my Bible never said that.
Right.
And I don't know what type of biology class that they went to, but never in my life, and I'm a nurse, have I ever heard that. So I got involved. I became a part of the CRA, the California Republican Assembly. I sit on the board of the SRA, the Sacramento Republican Assembly, and I just, anywhere that there was a rally that I can go to, I attended because I knew that we had to get the word out. People didn't know what they were trying to pass in the legislature. And I just knew that if we didn't say more, do more, our kids would end up in the state's hands. And that's never a good thing.
Yeah. Wow. See, you are perfect for this because that is what has ignited so many of the fighters that are in the fight. And so many, I mean, in Moms for Liberty, almost everybody that we talk to, we're like, hey, what ignited you? What really inspired you to get started? And it almost always is COVID or the trans issue. And the thing is, like, if you're an adult and you want to do things as an adult, be an adult. We live in a free country. Go, be whatever you want to be. Be a unicorn, I don't care. Stop pushing it on our kids. Stop trying to make this, because what we're seeing is a lot of times it roots from an emotional situation, a mental health issue. And there's things that are untreated, whether it's an emotional situation from a bad situation at home, lifestyle situation in the home, something that's happening, or this child is emotionally not having their needs met at school, and so they want to belong. And I will give them the credit. This entire agenda has done a very good job of giving you place to belong. Right. Mm-hmm. And so they fill that need. Also, a lot of autistic kids end up in there because it gives them a place to feel safe and accepted. And so they've really got their messaging and marketing down. And now they've got legislators that are just pushing it through so many things, like, we don't need a law for this. We don't need an ordinance for this. We don't need a policy for this. And it's just flooding in and being crammed. Like, when people say it's being shoved down the throats of our kids, it is. It's being crammed at them from every direction. It's in math. It's in English. It's in history. It's why,
Why?
Mm-hmm.
Leslie, 100% I agree with you, because there's never a reason for us to teach a 5-year-old sex ed. There's never a reason for us to teach a 10-year-old or 12-year-old sex ed. Why? I remember when I was 12 and you couldn't get me to come inside the house because I was too busy playing. I was outside ripping and running with my friends, playing double dutch, jump rope, anything to move and get outside and be a kid. And yet we are trying to force our children to become adults earlier and earlier. For what reason? Allow children the innocence of childhood. Why do we have to force feed them sex education at such a young age? I remember when I was young, if children knew about sex, that's because somebody was sexually abusing them. That's because someone was introducing sex to them and it was not a good thing. So now we want to do the same thing that we used to put people in jail for. Why? I don't think that our country needs that, and I don't believe that California, in all its golden brightness, needs that. We need to get back to the basics, and we need to definitely put God back into everything that we took God out of, because we see what we got, right? Once we took God out of it, this is what we have. So I'm 100% for getting God back, getting prayer back, getting people back to the basics.
California has swung so far one direction. The only way to get it back is bringing back common sense. And I'm not saying that just to jump on, the U.S. narrative of common sense politics, but California has been so wacky Wednesday upside down that our founding fathers said the only way our country is going to stand is if we have a moral society to hold people accountable. The only way you have a moral society is by bringing God back into the equation. People don't fear God. They don't fear consequences. They don't fear anything right now. And we are being led by just a truly evil force that is just coming it's breaking down. And again, I told you on this episode, we're going to talk more about families and parents and parental rights, but the entire narrative of what's going on in our government is to dissolve the family unit, to break down those borders, to, alienate and emasculate the men, make the moms and the kids dependent on government, right? Yes. And, hello, I'm the government and I'm here to help. Ronald Reagan said that's the scariest statement that you can ever hear, because government's not the solution to government problems.
Mm-mm.
And
Mm-mm.
I love that you're so well informed and you know all the issues and all the solutions are simple. We need to
Yes.
go through and we need a clean house and
Yes.
we need less of this extra junk just piled. I mean, you look at the US Constitution, right? Then you look at the California Constitution and it's ginormous. Then you look at like what laws get put out each year in California. The books, I mean, it's growing, the stack. Just the like 1 day booklet for Senate was an entire book.
Right. Right. And I think that we've gotten in, we've gotten to the point where we believe that the answer is more legislation. And we don't need more legislation. We need less legislation because we have every law on the books that covers most of the issues that we want to re-legislate. However, what we really need, the problem isn't in whether or not we have the right laws. The problem is in the people who are one interpreting those laws and upholding those laws. Because when you have people who don't have the moral compass that's necessary for our country to be as great as it should be, then you're never going to interpret the laws that are on the books correctly. You need God fearing people in the legislature. When you don't have God fearing people, well, they also don't fear you. So you wonder why we have people who have been in office for how many decades and yet feel that they can do whatever they want to do without answering to the people, that they don't have to make sure that the laws that they are voting in are what their constituents want. That's because one, they don't fear God. Two, they don't fear the people. And and three, we've taken ourselves out of the equation by making sure that only the people who are in the seats are speaking. We need to speak. And how do we speak? We vote them out. That is our voice. And we can't sit back and say, oh, well, it's the lesser of two evils. No, if you feel that there's nobody running that has your moral values, then you go find somebody and make them run. Why?
Mhm.
Because it's our country, it's our state, and we have to be involved.
You, you nailed it. Like I have been saying this all week. The news of Taylor Swift's engagement is on everything. It's you open your phone, who cares? What
Right.
people should care about is who is making these policies that affect their pocketbook. Who are making these policies that affect their children's future? Who are making these policies? And most people can't even tell me. They can't tell me who their assemblyman is. They can't tell me who their state senator is. They can't tell me who their US senator is. They can't tell me who their US congressman is. And they definitely have no clue who's on their local board of supervisors and city council or their school board. Like people have no clue, but they can tell me what date Taylor Swift got married or got engaged and who she is
Right.
and what all of his stats are from football. They keep
Yeah.
us dumbed down and distracted and
Mm-hmm.
divided so that
Mm-hmm.
we don't unite to come against them and vote, so that we don't know who's voting. We just go, oh, the incumbent, they must be the most, and that's the narrative that gets put out there. They're the most qualified because they've been in office. Okay, even if that statement were true, which it's not, even if that statement was true, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. The people in California who are like, I can't afford to live, I can't afford to drink, I can't afford to eat, I can't afford to, on vacation, but then vote for the incumbent because that's what they're told to do. It drives me nuts. It's like, you're not going to
Yes.
get different results by voting for the same person. And you talked about people having a good moral compass and being able to go through and decipher the law, uphold the law and what that is. A lot of these things that get pushed on us are not laws. They're mandates or policies, right? And they get put in through legislature And then other places adopt them and send it out and tell them, in the school system. My daughter's here today. So if you see me completely distracted in my questioning or you hear a little voice in the middle of our talk, she's here with me today because we have California state mandates about vaccinations. And you're a nurse, so you understand. I'm not going to cluster vaccinate my daughter and pump her
Right.
full of a bunch of chemicals. So I spread it out because in California, we have a mandate, which is a policy. It's not a law that says that so much of the school has to be vaccinated. And if not, they're fined. So the schools don't even stick to that percentage line. They say all of them can't have to be, or they can't come. And they take
Right.
that policy as law. So
Right.
then,
And I think, Leslie, I love what you said because there is a distinction between policy and law. And however, we no longer teach civics in our schools the way we used to teach civics. There was a time when most people, like you said, knew who their assembly person was, knew who their mayor was. Some people don't even know who the mayor of their city is. They knew that because why we taught civics, and part of the civics class had you, look up the people who represented you. And even if it was just that one semester of learning how the legislature works, how the Senate works, how do we create a law? How does a law become a law? How do the policies come down? It gives us an insight into what our responsibilities are in that framework. When you don't understand how any of that works, you also don't understand what your responsibilities are in that. And I think that we need to get back to teaching our children civics so that they have an understanding of what their rights are, but more important, what their responsibilities are, so they grow up with that.
I 100% agree. I took my daughter with me to the Board of Supervisors meeting the other day, and I normally won't bring my kids because I think that they should be involved in government. All those kids, you were there at the AB 495 rally, all those kids that were there and they were testifying against the bills. And I love that. I wish we had more of that, more people bringing their kids. And sometimes, and especially in my local politics, I don't feel comfortable bringing my kids because we have people that come in there and they're screaming and they're cussing and they're getting the meeting shut down. And then it's become violent. Like, again, we have a moral issue in our society, right? But I agree. We need to be teaching our kids civics and then not teaching them all the extra junk that is mandated and shoved in. We have below 50% on across the board in everything in education. And the teachers are overwhelmed and they're like, I'm teaching to the test. And then I have to get in this restorative justice stuff. And then I have to get in the social emotional learning stuff. And I have to get in this and I have to get in. They're so overwhelmed and our kids are just being shoved full of but they're not learning anything. They can't count back change for you at a job. They don't know who their president. My daughter was in class and they had like, who's the president? She was in 5th grade. Who's the president? And she's like, my favorite president is so-and-so. The current president is this. And one of the kids said that the president was Abraham Lincoln. Another one said it was George Washington. Like, the kids don't know and don't understand. And it's 5th grade, but we're not, by 5th grade, I knew, right?
Right.
By
Right.
5th grade, my daughter knows.
And that says a lot about our culture, Leslie, because there was a time when everyone understood who the current president was,
Right.
because when we had the State of the Union address on TV, everybody watched, everybody was
Mm-hmm.
concerned. But now they have us so distracted that we would more people watch the Super Bowl halftime show than tune into the State of the Union address. Why? Why
Right.
is that? Because we've developed this culture of entertain me.
Mm-hmm.
Entertain me. If you're not entertaining me, I'm not going to watch.
Right.
And that's sad. That is sad. It's sad because there's so many areas in our culture that require us to put other people first. But when we have that entertain me type of belief, then we don't put other people first
Right.
because we're putting ourselves first. We have to be entertained first before we get involved, you know, and that's just that goes back to, you know, our beliefs, our belief system. Where do we draw it from?
Hmm.
If you take God out of it, now where do you draw your belief system from if you no longer have God in the equation? And so, yeah, we need to get back to the basics. We need to bring God back into everything because we need to raise our moral compass. And I'm not saying that people have to be perfect. I'm not talking about perfection, that just doesn't exist.
Right.
However, we should be able to understand that whatever decision that I'm making, how does it affect my neighbor? How does it affect the people that are coming after me? And we just don't do that anymore. I don't believe we do.
I agree wholeheartedly. And I love that we don't have to be perfect. God never called us to be perfect. He called us
Yes.
to love and he called us to spread the great commission, but he never called for perfection. And I love, somebody, I've heard it a billion times in my life, but somebody said it recently and it really resonated that God doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called, right? And so if you feel like I need to take on this, I need to get more involved, but I just don't know anything about politics. I just don't know anything about education. I don't know anything about, you know, student government. Like wherever you feel the need to get involved, but you're like, I don't know. God doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called. People will come into your life and teach you all of those things. I grew up on
Yeah.
Rush Limbaugh, but when I joined politics, I was amazed at how little I knew, right? And I have been given just these amazing teachers and people who just
Mhm.
pour into me and give me this information. And you'd be amazed at what you will get as like a spiritual download. I had never heard that term and I never understood that until I got into this realm and started doing things. And it's like you will get and understand things and you're like, where did that even come from? I didn't even know. And it's just these spiritual downloads that are given to you like, hey, ask this question. Hey, go here and do this. And it's so cool. Like once you get there. And so coming into this, you left a little bit about your history out. You served our great country, right? So not only do you understand what it means to come into this country legally, right, which we're having a huge issue with in California. So you understand and respect that process and know how much that means to the people who go through that. Your family was separated at such a young age to, have your family divided. That's got to have so much. But then as you grew up, you love our country so much, you served our country. So maybe speak a little bit about that.
Yeah, Leslie. So I was blessed because I did get the opportunity to serve in our United States Air Force. And at the time I went in, my older brother and my mother, because I grew up in Los Angeles, and most people growing up in Los Angeles, they want to be actresses or entertainers or, or in some type of sports, right? I grew up in a neighborhood that, that's what most of the kids wanted to do, you know. But my mother, being the traditional Nigerian mother, was like, no, no, not my child. Because, parents always want for us what we don't want for ourselves.
Right.
So my older brother was already serving in the military, and she spoke with him, and they pulled me aside and, oh, you could be an actress in the military. My mother said, I was like, really? Okay. I joined thinking I can, kill two birds with one stone. I can serve the country. I can do my acting thing. And
Yeah.
I went open general, and they were like, nah, we don't have that. I was like, what? But it was actually the best thing that my mom and my brother could have done because I gained so many skills. I learned how to I learned how to become more organized, because I I will say that when I was younger, I was more artistic than regimented. I learned how to work as a team, how to put my needs secondary when it's necessary. And that's not something that comes natural to most human beings. It's
Right.
sometimes you have to learn it. It's a skill. I learned, I got so many skills within the military that I never would have received otherwise. I think everyone should serve at least 2 years in the military because it really heightens your understanding of the necessities that that are that we take on um, as a military person, the sacrifices
Right.
that are needed. Um, and we do it because we love our country. And that love of the country actually gets ignited in the military because
Right.
you see how it works. You see people from all different walks of life just putting aside their own beliefs for the mission. And you don't really see that in too many other arenas. So the military gives you a different perspective of America the Great because you see
Right.
people from all those cultures under one flag. I love it. I loved it. So yeah, everyone should join it at least for 2 years at least. Yeah.
I love that. When I was in high school, I actually really did want to go into the military. I
Okay.
The recruiters would come and, I was the peppy cheerleader, social butterfly. So I'd go talk to them just because it's somebody new on campus. And oftentimes they sent somebody that was really cute. So, you know, I'd go talk to them. But I actually because like I said, I was raised on Rush Limbaugh. I've always had this love of country, but I was born on an Air Force base in Utah. And so my dad was in the Air Force. And so I've always loved that. And so I really did want to do that. And then as soon as I turned 18 and I thought I knew everything, and I was like, nope, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to find my forever. I'm going to get married. I'm going to have babies and I'm going to be like June Cleaver. Right. And I had no concept of what life was going to be like and what it was going to be like to live in California and America. And this whole, at that time, we were already starting the division of the family unit and it required two incomes to live. And so I thought I was going to be June Cleaver. Here I am. I'm 18. I found the love of my life. I'm going to get married and I'm going to be June Cleaver. Little did I know I was going to be working and trying to have kids and have them with me. And I always was really blessed to have a job where I could have my kids with me. So I didn't have to do the infant and daycare. But I wish I would have taken the time to go join the military and slow myself down. If I would have done that, I would have taken a couple years, figured out who I was and what I wanted, got in really good shape, right? I was a cheerleader, so I was in pretty good shape, but I would have gotten in even better shape. And I definitely could use that regulation and that organization. I could use that. And so I really wish that I would have, because now here I am, 20 something years later, and I'm a single mom. I've got 3 kids. I'm working. I really could have used that. And so I love that. I love that you say that, because so many people are very oh no, I don't ever want my kids going into that. Oh no, and our military just doesn't mean the same thing as it did back then.
Right. And that requires all of us to demand a certain standard.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in the military, the standard the standard wasn't lowered because we couldn't achieve it. The standard stayed the same and we had to figure it out. We had to figure out how to meet the standard. And that actually builds character. And I would love to see more character building opportunities within our within our society. I think sometimes we get into this poor me realm, and and we allow that to taint every part of our lives. Well, there's nothing that I believe there's nothing that God allows us to go through that isn't going to build us for whatever mission He has for us in
Absolutely.
the world. So when I was going through, I also was a cheerleader, but I'm telling you, when I was going through the military basic training, my cheerleading training did not come in, did not even come close, right? But it built my character because I thought the whole time, oh, I can't do this, I can't do this. But as I prayed at night and I was like, Lord, help me, I would wake up the next day at dark 30. And I never thought I could wake up that early, but I did. And afterwards, it felt good. I felt healthier.
Hmm.
I had clearer thinking abilities. Um, so I think sometimes we need to stop looking at the things that we see as struggles in a negative light and see the opportunity in it. And that's really what I want to do when I become lieutenant governor, God willing. I want to help our neighborhoods have a mindset, develop a mindset that is godly in nature and that looks at every single opportunity, every single thing that we say is an issue, a negative issue, and look at it as an opportunity for growth, an opportunity to bring together our neighborhoods, an opportunity for new ideas to rise up. And I'm hoping that every single neighborhood sees that what I'm bringing to the table is an opportunity for them also.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, you're amazing. I love it. You are going to be the best lieutenant governor we've ever had.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
when Mark comes on and interviews you later today, we're going to dive more into that civic side of it. What does a lieutenant governor do? What would be your roles and responsibilities? But maybe quickly, because this audience is going to be more our mama bears, explain to them because, again, we failed our country in civics. People don't know who their city council member is or their school board member is. They definitely don't know who our lieutenant governor is and what their role is. So, as a mom, why would voting for a good lieutenant governor be important? What is it that you would do with our legislature? I mean, I know we talked about it a little bit at the Capitol, but what role would you have in being able to kind of guide some of these laws and stuff?
Well, thank you, Leslie, for asking that. Because I find that, like you said, quite a few people aren't aware of the role of the lieutenant governor. One of the biggest is that I'm the head of the Senate. As the lieutenant governor, I would be the deciding vote for a lot of these policies, for a lot of the bills that are coming through. And we want somebody if that's going to have California's heart at the top of their list when they're making a decision about whether or not a bill is good for the state. And too often we find that we have people who feel that it's good for their political agenda, but it may not be good for everyone. It may not be good for our kids. It may not be good for our state as a whole. And you want people in the Senate who have the best interests of California, but also have the best interests of our kids, making that final vote. And also, we have, as the lieutenant governor, I would sit on the UC and CSU boards. So, higher education right now, as you are most likely aware, there's a lot that's going on with higher education in California. And we need leaders who are strong enough to say no, to say,
Yes.
hey, right now we have to focus on education, and all that political stuff does not need to be um, on our campuses. All that political stuff needs to be outside of the campuses because people pay their money. People struggle through junior high, high school to get here to learn. And that
Right.
is the first thing that that's the paramount goal. So we should put learning first, and all that other stuff should not be on the campus, it should be somewhere else.
I love that so much.
Yeah. And I think that, and I believe in diversity. However, I don't believe in the way that we have forced diversity down people's throats.
because natural diversity is giving everybody equal opportunity. And those who are ready to rise will rise.
Right.
I don't believe that whether you're African American, Hispanic American, Caucasian American, we are all Americans first, which means all Americans need to have the same opportunity. So I believe in making sure that if there are underserved communities, let's find out why they're underserved and fix the issues there.
Yes.
Because people say, "Oh, we don't get the money." Well, it's not because the money isn't sent. An example being that we know that there were millions and millions of dollars put into homelessness, and yet we still have homeless camps everywhere. And the people who are suffering from being unhoused are saying, "Well, where are the true answers? Where are the policies that are trying to really have an effect, a true effect on homelessness, not just bringing us water every once in a
Right.
while, or bringing us food every once in a while. We need the money to affect true change, and yet they never saw that, and we
Right.
cannot account for that is I don't even know what to say about that, because that should never happen. And that can happen when we have leaders who don't have the moral compass to understand that they are stewards of other people's money. Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Beautifully said. Because that's 100% true. And it goes across the board on all issues. So many
Mhm.
issues. The funding is there, the structure is there, and then it gets put into the hands of NGOs and people's pet projects. And then we see these people, like you said earlier, who have been in government their entire lives, never worked a real. Gavin Newsom has never had a real job, right? He was bred for government, placed in government, and he's buying what, $6 million mansions, and where and how? Like, how does this happen? His wife is getting money for funding through her nonprofit. Like, we're seeing things that is just a complete misuse and misallocation. And then the people who that money and the services who that money is for don't get it, right? And, we have veterans on the street, and we have, mentally ill people on the street. And our homeless problem is worse than it's ever been. It's not getting better. We've thrown, like you said, millions and billions at it and nothing. And so having leaders in there with a moral compass to say, this is not getting better. Let's deep dive. Let's ask questions. So many people
Mhm.
get told, no, don't ask questions. You're not supposed to question that. Just go with it. Rubber stamp it. Rubber stampers are the worst thing in government. Um,
Right.
so tell us a little bit, because we're going to wrap this one up, and then we've got another entire hour with you where we'll deep dive into all of those issues and the civics of it. But tell us where people can go to learn more about you, how they can follow you. I know you've done some really fun interviews on social media. I got to be part of one of those. It was fun. I really enjoyed it. So where can people find you, learn more about you, follow you, and then how can they help you? What do you need to get the word out?
Thank you, Leslie. So you can follow me, or you can learn more about my campaign at www.ebielynchforcalifornia.com. That's EBIELYNCH for California.com. So that's my website. You can read about my platform on there, and it'll also have links to my social media pages. And on social media, you can follow me at EB or hashtag Ebie Lynch. And there's so much that needs to be done. The biggest thing is we would love to have some volunteers, because California is a very big state. And we'd love to have some volunteers that are willing to maybe make phone calls, knock on some doors, because we want to get the word out. We want to make sure that people are aware that, hey, there's somebody who wants to be able to represent you and your values. And we want to make sure that whatever you're thinking, we have the information for it. So come and let me know what your issues are, so that we can work together for some solutions.
And then two more things. You have some exciting events coming up because I follow you on social media. I see you've got some really fun events coming up in the kind of greater Sacramento area, but maybe more that I haven't seen. Maybe highlight a couple of those events and then wrap up by telling people you have a very unique slogan. And I love your slogan. It's not a political campaign slogan. It is more of how you live your life and how we can make California what it can be, what it once was, you know, the California dream that everybody has. So maybe highlight a couple of your events and then wrap up by letting people know about your KISS slogan, because I love it.
Yeah, so my the next event we're going to be at is the Unity in the Community event that is going to be on the 31st of August. You can get the details on my website at www.eblynchforcalifornia.com. And also, we have some more events. I'm definitely going to be at the Republican convention that's going to be in September. And we are going to be, there is quite a few on the agenda. I'm actually on my tablet right now, so I can't look at the at the calendar. But if you go to www.eblynchforcalifornia.com, we have an events area, events tab, and it'll go over some of the areas that I'm going to be at. So come on over and say hi. I love talking to people.
Perfect. And then close out with your slogan, your KISS slogan. I love it.
Yes. So, because God had put me into this race, he also gave me the message. And the message is that we need to get back to godly principles and we need to put God back into it. And how do we do that? So I got California KISS, KISS at California. KISS stands for Keep Igniting Savior's Spirit. So California, when there's an issue, kiss it.